Hi, I'm Marc Leishman from Ripper GC. Welcome to my LIV lesson. In this lesson, we're going to go over how to warm up with your wedges, how to execute your wedges on the golf course, and how to play in the wind.
Well, here we are on the range at Virginia Beach National Golf Club. I'm going to talk you through some of the fundamentals of wedge play today.
Marc Leishman, after a fabulous second shot.
Oh!
Well, he deserved that.
All right, so first I'll talk you through my wedge setup. I've got 4 wedges, 47 degrees, 51 degrees, 55 and a 60. They range from about, well, I'm in meters, so 90 meters for the lob wedge, which is 99 yards, to 130 meters for the pitching wedge, so about 143 yards, all spaced fairly evenly. I can hit them a lot further than that, but I feel like I'll lose a bit of control if I do that. Wedge play is all about pinpointing the distance, and I feel like if you've got a normal swing speed, rather than trying to smash it, you can control spin more, and I'll talk you through how I do that as well.
I think my favourite part about wedge play is all the different shots that you can hit, and you can create a lot of spin. If there's a front pin and you need to spin it back, you can take spin off, you can shape them. My wedge setup is quite versatile with different bounces on the soles, and I have that so I can hit a lot of different shots, and I think that's the coolest thing about wedges is, you know, being able to do that. And you know, the crowd always loves seeing some backspin, so that's always fun to do. Normally my warm-up routine on the range, I'll start with some sort of wedge, hit a few, you know, half swings, just loosen up a little bit, and then work my way through the bag. I don't have any set amount of shots that I hit with each club, or there's not certain clubs that I hit in every warm-up. Normally I'll change it up. If one club's starting to wear out a little bit more over the preceding months, I'll use something else so that wears out. But yeah, you know, work my way through the irons. You know, if I start with a sand wedge, I'll go to a 9 iron, then like a 5 iron, and I always hit all my woods. So I'll hit my 7 wood, my 3 wood, and then finish up with drivers before I hit a few more pitch shots to kind of get a bit of feel before I head onto the course, and then try and always end up, if it's possible, on the putting green before I go to the first tee.
All right, so this is my pitching wedge. Firstly, it's just a neutral grip, same as what you would do with all your other clubs. Stance width is roughly shoulder width apart, I would say. Ball position, for my pitching wedge, I have it just slightly forward of center. The club would be about center, so the ball a hair forward. If I want to hit it a little further, I can move it a bit back in my stance, which de-lofts the wedge. And if I'm trying to maybe hit a little bit of a fade, I'll put it a little further forward in my stance. So I've got different distances I can hit this club, and I can do that by drawing it or fading it or hitting it high or low. But the way I like to do it generally is with ball position. So if I need to hit it further, I'll just move it back a little bit so I don't have to hit it any harder, because when I start swinging harder, it creates more spin, which, particularly if it's windy, loses control. So I tend to adjust my distance with ball position, moving it forward or back. So I find that's the simplest way to do it, and something I've done for quite a long time.
I think managing that creativity that you have inside you, sometimes it's tempting to not hit the simplest shot. You know, you sometimes want to hit the hardest shot because it's the funnest shot to hit and the shot that the crowd wants to see, but sometimes that simple shot is the shot you should be playing. Well, it's always the shot you should be playing. So I think that's the most difficult part of it, is selecting which shot to play.
All right, so this is my 55 degree, almost sand wedge. I change it up a little bit with this just by narrowing my stance, probably a little less than shoulder width apart. And normally I'll have this a little further back in my stance than I would my pitching wedge. That's just for control. I find if I've got the ball position a bit too far forward with my sand wedge, it comes out really high. And growing up in the wind, I don't really like seeing the ball come out high.
And it's got a lot more fringe to carry. Oh, just too much spin.
I guess everyone's got a window that they like to see the ball come out at, and when it comes out too high for me, I feel like I've got no control. and therefore I have it a little further back in my stance, and that brings the ball flight down. So my sand wedge, I shape it a bit. So if I've got a right pin, I'll hit a little fade into it, left pin, little draw, and I'll talk you through how I do that in just a minute. All right, so we've got the 60 now. Generally, I'm not hitting too many full shots with the 60, but if I was to hit a full shot, I would say it would be pretty much exactly in the middle of my stance, the golf ball. Again, same as the sand wedge, I don't like having it too far forward because it comes out really, really high. So I'll have it middle of my stance, but most of the time when I'm hitting the 60, I'm trying to hit it between, I would say 60 and 100 yards. Hopefully a little shorter. My layup distance is about 80 yards. So normally it's not a full swing. I find if I have the full swing with the lob wedge, it's landing at 90 yards and spinning back to about 80 yards. So that's not ideal unless the greens are really, really firm.
It's really crucial to have a good short game. I think at the elite level, every part of your game needs to be elite, but sometimes, if your short game is really on, you can not have a great ball striking day, or your driver can be a bit off. Your short game can pull you out of a lot of trouble. So I think for that reason, it's one of the, if not the most important parts of your game. I would say wedge play, chipping and putting would be the most important parts.
All right, so we've got the pitching wedge here. Again, like stance about shoulder width apart, a little forward of the center of the stance. And with the pitching wedge, or all the clubs actually, you want to hit the ball and then the ground. You never want to try and lift it up in the air. So hopefully I'll hit the ball first, then the ground, and it creates a nice flight. So not a huge divot, which is good. A tendency for me is I get too steep, which means I'm coming down too steep and take too big a divot. So that was a good one because I hit the ball first and out of the middle of the club face.
I think the most common mistake I see is people try and help the ball into the air, try and hit up on it with a wedge, which is basically impossible because you very, very rarely hit a wedge off a tee. It's always off the ground or out of a, not a great lie. And if you try and hit up on it, then you're going to hit the ground first and chunk it or blade it. And so I think hitting it with that descending blow, hitting the ball first and then taking the divot is probably one of the things that I would like to see people do more. I see a lot of people trying to lift it up in the air.
The shafts are obviously shorter in the wedges than they are in the driver and the irons. It's easier to get, like I was saying, get steep for me with the wedges just because there's so much loft, and I'm trying to keep it a bit lower because I don't like seeing it come out too high. But for the most part, it's the same swing with all your irons. The driver's a little different because you're trying to hit up on it a bit and it's on a tee. Most of the time with the wedges, you're hitting them off the ground. So you will need that descending blow to get the ball first. You don't want to be getting grass stuck between the club face and the ball because that creates less spin or unpredictable spin, and then equates to unpredictable distance. So you don't want to be hitting into a green and thinking it's going to land at 120 yards and it lands at 135, hitting the people over the back. So getting that good contact is very important.
Marc has been unleashed.
So got the lob wedge here. Again, it's a little further back in the stance than the pitching wedge. I would say middle of the stance. The reason for that is because it's got so much loft on it that if it's any further forward in the stance, it's going to pop straight up in the air and have no distance on it. So it's handy if you want to hit a flop shot or you only have a very short distance. But if you want to get any sort of decent yardage out of the 60, you have to have it a little further back in the stance. It's a bit more of a descending blow, just to, again, keep that ball flight down. And generally the divot's a little bigger than it is with a pitching wedge. Well, the more loft the club has on it, generally the bigger divot you'll take. So if you're hitting a 3-iron, you're trying to almost sweep it off the turf, and the wedges, you obviously got more of a descending blow. So I hope that's not too confusing, but that's how I sort of think of how to play the wedges.
Well, I know people love hitting drivers and smashing it a mile. I think if you want to improve your score, I think improving your chipping and wedge play is the way to do it. I see a lot of shots wasted around the greens, not only at the amateur level, but in the professional level. And myself, you know, I've had off weeks where you hit it well and every time you miss a green, you just got no idea. So I find that that's the easiest way to improve score, is to hone your wedges in and be great from inside 100, 120 yards. It can, like I said before, it can really pull you out of a lot of trouble if the rest of your game's a little bit off.
So you have obviously a shorter swing for a shorter shot. Anything under about 50 yards, I don't think about the swing. I try and just use my feel. So the way I get that into my head is, if I'm going to throw a ball to you, I don't think about how far back and through to take my hand. I just grab the golf ball, you know, just look at you and throw it, and it generally goes straight to you. I find that it's the same with the shorter wedge shots, you know, 40, 50, 60 yards. You can generally just look at it and hit it. Obviously that takes practice to do, but when I'm trying to think mechanics while I'm on the golf course, trying to hit a certain yardage with a shorter wedge shot, I find I come into a few problems, and I'm better just feeling it. But being a field player, I guess it's easy for me to say. So obviously there's more than one way to play all these wedge shots I'm talking about, and there's no right or wrong way, but this is the way that I find works best for me and might help you guys.